Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're deconstructing the hidden layers, the engineering marvels, and the unsolved mysteries of literally the world's most famous monument. You probably think you know the Statue of Liberty, right? She's standing tall in New York Harbor, welcoming visitors, holding that torch high. But behind that familiar green copper facade, well, there's a history full of bizarre twists, massive failures, and some seriously hidden symbolism.
But hey, before we get into all the heavy engineering and construction logistics, I really want to challenge your assumptions right out of the gate with a mystery we're going to unravel a bit later in this explainer. Think about her face. We all call her Lady Liberty, but is she actually a lady? Keep that question in the back of your mind as we explore how this colossal structure really came to be.
Part 1. Assembling the Icon. Okay, let's dive right in by stripping away the myth and looking at the very fragmented, difficult, physical reality of her arrival. Her journey to New York was anything but simple.
It's honestly hard to picture, but on June 17, 1885, when the French ship Isère sailed into the harbor, the statue didn't arrive standing tall. Nope. Instead, she was packed into 214 massive crates, broken down into over 300 separate copper pieces. It was essentially the world's most complicated 3D puzzle. But even though she was literally in pieces, nearly 200,000 people still came out just to welcome this incredibly precious cargo to the United States.
But here's a pretty wild detail. A crucial piece was actually missing from those crates. The iconic arm and torch weren't on that ship because, well, they had already been in the US for years. See, the federal government initially flat out refused to pay for a pedestal to put the statue on. So to scrounge up sponsorships and generate some public interest, the massive arm and torch were just sitting on display in Madison Square Park for 6 years. Just imagine taking a stroll and walking your dog past a giant disembodied copper arm right in the middle of the city.
Since the government wouldn't foot the bill, newspaper magnate Joseph Pulitzer stepped up to the plate. He used his platform to ask the public for money, promising every single contributor an honorary shout-out in print, and it worked like a charm. A staggering 80% of the donations were just small, middle-class contributions, proving he successfully collected the necessary funds from over 120,000 individual everyday donors. It's just a fantastic reminder that this national icon was quite literally crowdfunded by everyday people. In fact, that massive fundraising effort is responsible for the monument's most famous words. You know, the legendary sonnet, the New Colossus, the one with the line, "Give me your tired, your poor," and now lives forever on a bronze plaque inside the monument. But originally, it was written by Emma Lazarus simply as a donation incentive. It was just a perk as part of this massive fundraising push.
Part 2. Original Plans and Intentions. Now that we know exactly how she was funded, let's talk about the fact that the statue we know today was originally intended for completely different purposes and in entirely different locations.
If things had gone just a little bit differently, she wouldn't be in New York at all. There's a very popular theory supported by historians that the French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi originally pitched this massive monument for the southern opening of Egypt's Suez Canal. The original design was actually an Arab peasant woman serving as a symbol of the Orient showing the way. But when the ruler of Egypt simply couldn't afford that colossal price tag, Bartholdi executed a massive pivot. He redesigned it, rebranded her as the Roman goddess of freedom, Libertas, and pitched it as a gift to America to celebrate the anniversary of their revolution.
Once she was finally erected in New York in 1886, she was immediately put to work. Most people have no idea that 2 years after arriving, the statue actually became a functioning lighthouse. That's right, for 16 years, the lamp in her torch served as an active beacon for ships sailing into New York Harbor.
But here's the kicker. It was a truly terrible lighthouse. The light was incredibly dim and practically useless for actual navigation. Bartholdi was desperate and running out of ideas to fix the lighting issue, so he legitimately pitched a new plan, covering the entire 151-foot statue in solid gold to make it more reflective. Yes, solid gold. Congress, predictably, rejected the idea as crazy expensive and ultimately shut down the lighthouse operation altogether.
Part 3. Hidden Math and Symbols. Beyond its physical purpose as a failed lighthouse and a welcome beacon, the creators wove a deep, deep layer of esoteric geometry and secret society symbolism directly into the copper.
It's pretty well known that the 7 spikes on the crown represent universal liberty across the 7 oceans and continents. But check out the math here. It is crystal clear the creators were completely obsessed with weaving the number 7 into every single dimension. There are 25 windows in the head. 2 plus 5 equals 7. There are 16 leaves around the torch. 1 plus 6 equals 7. Even the height of the monument itself is exactly 151 feet. You guessed it. 1 plus 5 plus 1 equals 7. That is definitely not a coincidence.
This wild obsession with symbolism stems from the fact that Bartholdi was a member of the French Grand Orient Temple Masons. This strongly explains why the torch isn't just some standard lamp. It's modeled directly after the Masonic Torch of Enlightenment, or the Flaming Torch of Reason. These Masonic ties run so deep that the Grand Master, William A. Brodie, actually presided over the official cornerstone laying ceremony in 1884. Knowing this completely changes how you look at that torch forever, right?
But the exterior is only half the story. We have to talk about the sheer genius of Gustave Eiffel. Yep, that Eiffel, the famous engineer behind the Eiffel Tower. While Bartholdi designed the copper skin, Eiffel designed the incredible internal steel skeleton that keeps the massive structure standing. His brilliant framework is what allows the 354-step structure to literally flex in the wind. The statue can safely sway 3 inches, and the torch can sway 5 inches during heavy storms. Plus, it's strong enough to absorb and survive a staggering 600 lightning strikes every single year. Just mind-blowing engineering.
Part 4. The Identity Mystery. We've reached the climax of our explainer, where we return to that opening question: who is actually staring out over New York Harbor?
While the widely accepted historical story claims Bartholdi simply modeled the face after his own mother, there are 2 highly compelling alternative theories pointing to completely different people.
The first is the brother theory. Author and journalist Elizabeth Mitchell studied photographs of the Bartholdi family and noticed something strange. The statue's features fundamentally do not match his mother's. The mother had a different eyebrow shape, thicker lips, and a larger mouth. But you know who the statue perfectly matches? His adult brother. Because of a severe mental health condition, Bartholdi brothers spent years in a hospital. Frederick would sit and spend hours just watching him, giving him the perfect, quiet opportunity to memorize and recreate his brother's face in exact detail in the copper.
Alternatively, we have the Sarah Salmon theory. French writer Nathalie Salmon claims that Lady Liberty was actually modeled after her ancestor, an immigrant named Sarah Salmon. According to her research, Sarah and her husband briefly visited Bartholdi's Paris studio in 1875. The sculptor was reportedly so struck by her specific features and beauty that he drew her during that brief visit, and later used those exact sketches as the definitive model for the world's most famous face.
Part 5. An Evolving Legacy. Regardless of whose face it really is looking out at the skyline, the monument's physical appearance and its massive global footprint have transformed drastically since that initial dedication day.
As we trace this timeline, you'll see she wasn't always green. Because she's made of copper, originally, when President Grover Cleveland dedicated the statue in 1886, she was the shiny brown color of a brand new penny. Over the years, she went through a very awkward phase where she was half brown and half green, until the oxidation process created a permanent green coating called a patina. By 1920, the transformation was totally complete, giving us that iconic mint green color that actually protects the metal underneath.
And finally, her legacy isn't confined solely to New York. She has several official sisters scattered across the globe, primarily in Paris. There's the original, smaller model sitting right in the Jardin de Luxembourg. There's a magnificent replica on an island in the Seine River, erected in 1889, which bears 2 dates, July 4, 1776 and July 14, 1789, beautifully celebrating both the American and French revolutions. There's even a life-size copy of the torch at the Pont de l'Alma, sponsored by people worldwide as a symbol of Franco-American friendship. And of course, she inspires endless pop culture, famously greeting visitors at a massive toy store right in the middle of Times Square.
So, we've unpacked the hidden math, the Masonic ties, and the crazy engineering of Gustave Eiffel. But think about this for a second. If the world's most recognizable monument was pieced together through crowdfunding, changed colors entirely, failed miserably as a lighthouse, and might actually possess the face of a man, well, it leaves you wondering, what other secrets are our most famous historical icons hiding in plain sight?